Hello, and welcome in to the Nesson MMA podcast. I'm Andre Cacciatore, and as always, joined by combat sports journalist Manuk Akopian. Manuk's work has been presented all over many different outlets, including the Los Angeles Times, the Al Jazeera, and The Guardian. Manuk, how are you today?
Doing great, Andre. Pleasure to speak with you as always.
Good. Pleasure to speak to you as well. Sorry, I thought you were going to add more to that. But yeah, we're coming off an exciting card at UFC 235. John Jones defeated Anthony Smith to defend the light heavyweight belt. Kamaru Usman defeated Tyron Woodley to snatch the welterweight belt. And got some good performances by young fighters like Edmund Shahbazyan getting a first-round knockout in 38 seconds. Zabit Magomed-Sharipov, a dominating performance over Jeremy Stevens. And Ben Askren making his UFC debut, getting submission victory in the first round. But we move along now into UFC Fight Night in Wichita. It's the promotion's first visit to Kansas, so it's good. They're spreading the love all over 50 states in the Intrust Bank Arena. The main event of this card is a heavyweight showdown between Derrick Lewis and Junior Dos Santos, two fighters who recently fought for a belt and lost. Dos Santos fought at UFC 211 back in May of 2017 against Stipe Miocic. Lost that one via TKO in the first round. And, of course, Derrick Lewis is coming off a championship loss against Daniel Cormier. That was at UFC 230 in New York City. Now, these two guys will be fighting. What do you see in this battle between two heavyweights with kind of different styles, I guess?
Yeah, Andre, I mean, Derrick Lewis, there's no one that gets the most out of his talent right now at the heavyweight division than Derrick Lewis. This guy is a one-punch masterpiece waiting to happen, as we've seen so many times. But, it's also that feast or famine mentality that he brings that really is that is a detriment to his game as well, too. When you have someone like Junior Dos Santos who has a more all-around package, his takedown defense is impeccable. He can waltz circles around Lewis if he really wants to, from a technique standpoint. So it's but I also was looking at the odds on OddsShark, and being a minus 210 favorite, I think is too much for Dos Santos because Lewis is a legitimate threat. He's had a fantastic 2018 with 3 wins and a loss. Obviously, you said that loss was to Cormier. That one loss was to Cormier, which is nothing to hang your head low about. But with those devastating knockouts, he's also scored 2. It gives him that chance. But I think come Saturday night, Junior Dos Santos is going to really etch his name back into the heavyweight picture and perhaps get a title shot. We'll see.
I look at these two guys, again, you mentioned Dos Santos is the more complete fighter, but he is basically a striker. You look at his significant strikes, 4.78 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 3.13 significant strikes per minute. So he's always involved in these brawls. And the question with Lewis has become his cardio. Like, Lewis is more, he's not really a brawler. He's more of a one-punch specialist, like finish the fight and with your devastating power. But you look at this fight, people have always questioned Lewis's cardio, but I think he's proven recently that his cardio hasn't really been much of an issue. That fight against Volkov was one of the greatest I've seen, UFC 229, with 11 seconds left. He was basically losing that fight, and he came back, and one of the greatest comebacks we've seen in UFC recent history. Came back and won that fight with one blow. And then with Ngannou, that one's full unanimous decision. Now, granted, that fight didn't have much action in it, but still, went unanimous decision. And his victory over Marcin Tybura, he won that fight in the third round. So he's been showing that he can go into the third round and win these fights. Now, obviously, this is a 5-round fight, so I feel like the deeper we go into this fight, the advantage Dos Santos, because he's just a more complete guy. But I don't think it's going to go that far. I think these guys are going to start brawling. And I just, it's a heavyweight fight. Sometimes just heavyweight fights can be 50-50 coin tosses. And I think this is one of them where it's just two strikers, two guys who we're going to try to get the knockout, and I think Lewis is just going to get it because I don't know. I think he's in his prime right now. Dos Santos is an older guy, he's 35, and I think Lewis will just be able to win this fight via knockout in the first or second round.
Well, I wouldn't call Derrick Lewis in his prime. I mean, he's 34 years old. They're both the same age.
He joined the fight game, later in his career. And his first fight was in 2010. But in 2010, Dos Santos was fighting for a title.
Absolutely. I mean, the wear and tear on Junior's body is a lot more obvious. He's blocked a lot of punches with his nose. That is for certain. You did mention Derrick Lewis's cardio. I really don't think cardio is going to be a question in this fight. I see it lasting one round. And of course, Derrick Lewis is one of the most outspoken fighters in the game right now, and we know how he's credited his bedroom stamina as a way of building cardio. So you don't know what kind of practice he's been partaking in heading into this fight. So if it does end up 5 rounds, then his wife might deserve an interim title.
Well, we won't go there, but you look at also Dos Santos' losses. The last 4 losses, twice against Velasquez, former champ, once against Overeem, former Strikeforce champ, and also obviously to Miocic, one of the greatest UFC champions. He does lose to the big opponents, and I don't know. Lewis isn't a former champion, but I think the guy's at the top of his game, and I think for that reason, just you look at the two guys. This is going to determine who puts himself in the next position for a future title shot. Obviously, I don't think either of them will get one anytime soon, just because they both were in title matches. But it's a good good resume builder, I should say. One of these guys, whoever wins this fight and then goes on to rattle off 2 more wins, they can say, "Hey, I beat Dos Santos plus 2 more fights," or "Hey, I beat Lewis plus 2 more fights." So it's definitely an important fight as a resume builder, I guess.
Absolutely, and this is the beauty of the UFC, in which actually, in more ways than one, supplants boxing just from a matchmaking standpoint. I mean, you had someone, and Dana White realizes that you had someone like Derrick Lewis, who is on the Khabib McGregor undercard, had this amazing performance, stole the show with that comeback. Had one of the best post-fight interviews of all time with the classic "My balls is hot." So there is, and Dana White realized that. So getting that shot with Cormier, I think, was Lewis's highlight. That was the pinnacle of his career, and I think this is going to be that 3-fight stretch where it doesn't get any better than this for him. And I think Junior Dos Santos is going to take it from Saturday night.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to go with Lewis again. As I mentioned, you're going with Dos Santos. Again, it's so hard, but that's another thing. It's hard to predict this fight because it's just 2 heavyweights who are known for just brawling or throwing, knocking out their opponents. Dos Santos, 14 knockouts in his career, and of course we know Lewis is he's capable of ending a fight at any instant. He has 18 knockouts in his career out of his 21 wins. So when it comes to heavyweights like this, it's just so hard to predict, which is why if you're looking at this fight on a betting standpoint, you mentioned Dos Santos being such a huge favorite. I would take Lewis.
Great value.
What's that?
Yeah, great value. Definitely.
Great value for Lewis. So, I mean, I would absolutely take Lewis, and it'll be interesting to see how the line shifts as we get closer to the fight, because I'm sure a lot of people are looking at that and saying, hey, these are 2 heavyweights. You could end the fight at any second. It kind of makes it a 50-50 proposition. I'm going to take the value with Lewis, and that's what I'm looking at. And the betting standpoint, I'm absolutely going with Lewis, but I do also think that Lewis has the ability to win this fight early. But also, you know what I can see more I think about it? I can see this fight turning out to be like Lewis and Ngannou, where both of these guys have the ability to finish a fight with 1 punch, and both of them just stalemate each other. It's kind of like you just look at each other and someone's waiting for to make the first move. I could totally see that happening as well. So we're all expecting this exciting finish, but it just drags out and nothing exciting happens.
I think now might be as good a time as any to remind our listeners that I might as well be called Manuxtradamus because all of my picks so far have been accurate and pointed out to a T. So if you guys are listening, I would go with Dos Santos because I haven't been wrong yet. So I just jinxed myself.
Keep
so
tooting your own horn, but we'll see what happens in Kansas. I look at the rest of the card. Mainstream UFC fans aren't really going to get up for this card, to be honest with you. UFC Wichita, but hey, good the people of Wichita get.
Do you Andre? Do you think Dana White was listening to the White Stripes Seven Nation Army song one night and said, "Hey, we need to take the UFC to Wichita"?
I don't think he was listening to it voluntarily because that song comes up so much during sporting events. He's probably doing a Ravens game, to be honest with you. Maybe he heard it during a Ravens game. Maybe he gets that Ravens-Chargers playoff game. I don't know. Maybe that's how he decided. But, Manu, thank you very much for joining us again, breaking down these fights. We'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.